What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. The So Rare Sharps, we're back. I don't know if we took a week or 2 weeks off. Feels like forever, though, George. How are we doing?
Yeah, all good. I'm excited. I mean, we've had the sort of the hangover now of the Christmas and New Year, so getting back into the swing of things, I think it's good to get back into a routine. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I know that's how I feel too. We were talking about it earlier this morning. I was feeling a little under the weather, and I was tempted to just like cancel everything that I had today. And I was like, we're literally one day back into the week. We can't cancel. We've just had like 2 weeks off. We can't cancel everything. So we're fighting through it. But it's good to be back. I think we've got some fun stuff to dive into. I think it was like 3 weeks ago we did our So Rare therapy. I feel like we've gotten that out of the system. I feel good. I feel cleansed. I feel renewed. Where are you at sentiment?
Well, I did just see that the team Hold Sorare has hit 500 subs. That was the
we did hit 500. So that means
that was the marker.
I think what we're gonna do is at the end of Live Before Lock on Friday, we're gonna fire out our KD one. Also, the other channel is over like 4,000 now. The Team Hold Sports one.
The Sengun one.
Yeah, we had a couple other videos pop the last couple of days, so we're cooking.
Gotta teach me your ways. Gotta teach me your ways on that one.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all, but I'm gonna take it. But yeah, it does feel like, I don't know if it's in the new year, people got some Christmas bonuses, some holiday bonuses or something, so they're less concerned about account valuations. But it seems like the sentiment in general feels relatively positive last like week or two.
Yeah, I mean, I think. So, I mean, I know it could come across as sarcasm, but it genuinely wasn't half the time. I really did think when there was moments that the prices were really low, I was like, it's just a bit too low. I feel like they're good opportunities to get involved in. And I think the market itself has also realized that there was probably a little bit too low on some cards. And it's starting to feel its way back again, and it'll balance out. But this is what happened last year, not to the same effect, but sorry. And yeah, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see what gets announced coming forward. And that's obviously what we're going to discuss in a little bit in today. But that can make or break then this sort of, not bull run, but this sort of come up in ideas again.
Yeah, I feel like I think they're right. There was a little bit of a market inefficiency where we saw some stuff dip down, maybe a little too low. Plus the idea of people being like, "Hey, man, there could be an announcement any day now," and I think that got people excited. And we also saw the collections get announced as well, and people got jacked up about that. So just for the people who are wondering, like, hey, what are we actually doing today? We're going to dive into, we referenced it on a show recently. Some of Nico had a tweet about like Q1, some stuff to expect. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Maybe some all-star playoffs / Paris, those types of special contests, if we get anything like that. And then, I don't know, we'll see wherever it takes us. But before we dive in, I just wanted to do this right now, George, because, I took a couple of weeks off from the So Rare streets, fresh off in a reward this past game week in the rare. I think George, I mean, who cares about this one?
All right.
But we get some. What is going on here? My lineups. There we go. I was looking at Bradley Beal. All right, so this limited contender's fine, right? We get Bridges had a pretty bad game. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
we're looking at a tier 5, tier 4,
it
something like that.
happens.
Yeah, look at this limited underdog though. Are we on the podium this game week?
That I don't know if that holds, but that's mad. That
I
doesn't.
know.
That seems like too low to hold though. 128 seems like it's not going to be enough. But that's mad.
No, I
Still.
don't think it'll be on the podium either unless we get Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox to go off. And then we got a rare contender though. I feel like this has a shot at making some
That will definitely hold to at least a tier 3. I feel at least.
I think so too. And I think with Kyrie, I feel like Kyrie has a 50 in him, and
Yes,
so does Drummond. Drummond had a bad matchup and still got the 40 last night. So that one's alive. And then rare underdog, I don't think it's going to get there. We're 13 points away. But if Kamara plays, I feel like that's live.
that will. Yeah, I tell you what. It depends. Who have the Spurs got another game, or is that?
Yeah, against the Bucks.
Right. Okay. So if they get blown out, maybe Sandro sees a bit more of an uptick in minutes. I mean, I was looking at mine. I still need to do this where I have it set up so I can share my screen on here because I have it set up on like 2 different PCs, and that's how it's like.
Oh, right.
The only lineup that I've got this week that's probably going to hit. I'm 54th in limited champion at the minute.
Okay.
And I've got Kyrie in there, who I think at 36 is going to get. I would expect, unless he comes out and sits the next game. A game against Portland, I would expect. Yeah, I'm sitting in 54th at the moment.
54th, how many points you have?
I'm on 234. So
2, 3, 4.
You can, if you scroll up, you can normally see if you click like leaderboard and then you go full leaderboard at the top. So right up at the top, it'll show.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, thank you.
So I'm 54th now, and I feel like there is room for it to improve, but it will depend solely on Kyrie improving and then none of the other like main MVPs going off. So,
well, I also think you could get some more out of Ja. I think Alec Burks, you probably get the ceiling out of Burks there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kyrie and Ja, I feel like could definitely jump up a little bit. Yeah, that's a solid squad. That's a solid squad.
I mean, look, I was looking at this and I know this isn't like what we're getting into, and I'm absolutely gonna just self flex here. I was going through and I've been keeping track of like where I've been winning this year, and for how hard rewards are. And don't get me wrong, I think Rare Champion is too hard. I think Rare Contender's in a nice spot. I'm not angry at Rare Contender. I think Rare Champion is still a bit silly, but I've won out of the 20 weeks. I've won 17 weeks. Like, even if it's like the tier 1 or if it's a tier 4, every week at the minute, apart from 3, I've had something to open. So I'm speaking from my perspective, and I'm like, I don't really think it's too hard, but I get it in certain areas of things like that. And I don't even have a massive gallery. Like, there's like I've got some of the good MVPs in limited now, but I'm nowhere near like a huge gallery at all, is what I'd say. But
yeah, no, you've had a hot year so far.
Yeah.
I think if I pull multiple rewards 2 game weeks in a row, I think I'm going to start calling myself a tout. I'm no longer going to be an influencer. I'm going to be a so rare tout.
There you go. Well, the thing is, the only thing I've never got, I haven't hit the podium yet. That's the one thing that's eluded me. I've seen TST's done it, Gnome's done it. I want to get, and like Billy will get like a podium every like fortnight. It feels like every time I'll check.
Yeah, he does.
But like they're in these different realms, and obviously there's loads of the guys with the huge galleries and get them. But I'm chasing down a podium. That's what I want to get. But
yeah, I kind of don't want it to happen in underdog, as Jump Shoot pointed out. It's like it's a tier 3 if you finish in the top 3 on which I get it because it's the underdog, whatever. But I think that would be a little deflating to be like, yes, finally top 3.
It's one of the things that I said like before. I kind of have a little bit of beef with underdog, especially on limited. More, I mean, rare underdog. 20 places being paid is just very harsh. But if you win limited underdog, you get a tier 3. If you come 100th in limited underdog, you get a tier 3. And now there'll be a different level of the tier 3 you get. But it should still be a little bit. You should get like a tier 3 and like $100 or something like that's what it should be. Something like that. But
yeah. Or like a rare tier 4 and then a limited tier 3. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully I mean, listen, I'm not going to complain if I hit a podium, but I would like it to happen elsewhere.
Well, you can say you
First.
hit a podium on like your bio for So Rare, and then just don't tell
Yeah.
anyone that it was limited underdog.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I won't let them, I won't link them, I won't show them how to find it. All right, enough of just self-flexing. I was just excited
Yeah,
to look at this game week because it had been fun. Although there's like 45 games tonight, so there's going to be a lot of movement, I'm sure.
yeah.
And I think the Lakers are playing their first game, so there'll be some movement for sure here. But let's get into Nico's tweet. So this was from, before I share screen, this was from, what was the date on this bad boy? December 29th, so right at the end of the new year, the year. And here we go. Let's dive into it a little bit. And I think we've referenced it. Maybe it was at the end of Live Before Lock we referenced it, but I'll kind of, we'll go through a couple of these and we can like stop and talk about it. Because I'm interested in the very first one. He says Sorare Pro. This is just going to be on football, which I'm not surprised by. It feels like football gets the thing first, and then if it works well, it goes elsewhere. But a new competition structure mirroring the real world of football. Star players be star players. Now, do you have any idea what this means? Because I was confused by the star player. I was following until star players be star players.
So, the short answer is no. I don't really know what he means, but what I think he means is there's a lot of essence, and obviously, since they acquired the Premier League rights, there's been a big old push in terms of Premier League cards, right? And it's been happening with all the major leagues as well, within the Spanish league, the La Liga, and the German league, the Bundesliga. What I feel here is that if you look on the scoring matrix on football, you can have an Erling Haaland who will play in the Premier League, the best striker in the Premier League currently. And you could have, for example, Christian Benteke, who was no longer good enough to play in the Premier League, moved overseas, plays for DC United in the MLS. And the scores on some of the players within the more obscure leagues will score better than some of the best players in the world playing in the best leagues in the world. And I think that's what they're going to try and do. I'm reading into this in the manner of that I fear they're going to have either exclude sort of like MLS and Liga MX players from playing in the same competitions, or have like a multiplier that gets put on the better players in real world. I think this isn't going to come to the NBA. Like, they're not going to be like, do you know what? The Pistons, they got a like 0.1 multiplier for the rest of the season. Bam. How'd you like that? I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I like that.
That's how I think it's just a football thing that they're going to try and do to level the playing field, instead of like your Kevin De Bruyne's of the world scoring less than like a Carlos Hill that's playing in the MLS. I think that's where they're going with it.
I think that does make sense, because my first thought when I was looking at this, I was like, wait, so are cards going to get relegated? Like, I like the idea that if you play Rare Contender every week, right, or whatever the format is in football, and you just continue to finish in like the bottom third of the standings, they're like, you know what? All of those rare cards are now limited cards.
I think there's like, maybe not for the scarcity side of it, but there is potentially a way in which you can have, I mean, they do it with champion and challenger, where you have like in England, where we have different tiered leagues. Like, you have the Premier League, then you have the Championship, League One, League Two. You can only play challenger, which will be championship and below, whereas for champion, you only play the top league. There's maybe some way that they can implement that in the NBA one week and do like a special, like, you can only play the top two teams out of these divisions, or like you play the underdog ones where everyone has to play like Spurs, Pistons, and see how it goes from there, and like a Charlotte Hornet team. Like, there's scope for that, but I think maybe that's a little bit too that's a little bit too far in the future. There's a lot of other things that I think we want implemented before that. So
I also feel like this really doesn't impact the NBA anyways, because of the L10, right? The L10 kind of keeps all of that in check, because when you see somebody that is not a star, like say Craig Porter Jr. go ham a couple of weeks because Mitchell's out, like his cap ends up reflecting that. And then you're like, well, I'm not playing Craig Porter Jr. at a 44 when I can play Ja at a 40 or something like that, right?
Yeah. You have L15 in football, but the difference that they have in football now is they've kept it where if a player gets injured and they miss 15 games, they then go back to like a DNP and they have an L10 or L15 of 0. Whereas in the NBA, like when Ja Morant was out and he missed all those 25 games plus, he stayed at an L10 of 40. They don't reduce it to 0, because then I remember they had that issue when Keegan Murray at the start of the very first game week on season 1, where he was just a 0. And it was like, if you have him, you win. If you don't, you're not winning anything. And it was going to be the same every year with when they introduced draft guys in. So I think that's the difference for it. But yeah, it's a bit isolated in football at that point.
Yeah. All right. Let's hit another point here. So he says number 2, better rewards structure for all sports, more exciting openings in boxes, more exciting prizes in general. Managers want to dream big, and the prize structure will adjust accordingly. And I feel like you talked about some of this stuff that they've been doing. I think you did, right, on one of the shows that we did about this whole idea of like a prize box that you could win.
So they've done it on, again, they trial everything out in football, it seems, which is a little bit sucky to see. Like, I wish they just do something first, even if they do it in the MLB first and then the NBA. Like, I know that there's probably a lot more freedom that they've got with the football one as opposed to the licensings that are going to be done on the NBA and the MLB. But essentially, it is, there were premium standard light boxes, I want to say. So it's 3 different tiers depending on where you finished, and they had percentages of things to win. So because their football has the club shop, you could win boosts that you can put on your limited cards or rare cards. You could then also have a 5% chance of hitting a tier 3, a 1% chance of hitting a star card, and it's just like an animated box opening. They're basically, it's like a thing that you see with on like NBA 2K or FIFA Ultimate Team. It's one of those things that's just a little bit more visually appealing to watch, but it's, I'm not sure how I feel about them, because again, at the idea of that, it's a bit like Underdog at the minute, where someone could come first, win one of the best boxes, someone could come 20th and win one of the best boxes, and because it's just a chance, the person who comes 20th could get better than who come first, and I don't love that per se. But
Right.
yeah.
And as Jump Shoot was saying in the chat here, so basically app-based slot machines.
Yeah, I think they skip around the gambling side of it because there's a predetermined amount. Like, it isn't although it is random, it isn't one person out of those whole things will win it. It's just decorated in that sort of way. So I think that they can get around it in that regard. But I don't like it from the side of the player that I could come first and get something worse than someone that comes 30th. Like,
Yeah, no, that makes no sense. I mean, like that happens a couple of times in like even in this happened early. I don't see it as much now, but like somebody who came in third won a tier 1 of like I can't even think of a good example, but the person who came in 6th got a better reward than the person who came in third. And it's kind of like, come on, like we can, I know there's an algorithm that does all of this, but like put some eyeballs on it before we give this away. I also love that you can never do this either, but I'd love the idea, especially like Podium. It would be, and this would be, again, this is my content brain, but if you finish the Podium, right, you bring the 3 people on. Maybe you don't bring them on, but I don't know. I love this idea that if I come in first, I get to pick the tier 1.
like a draft thing. Yeah.
Yeah, person who, I mean, I was probably way too much work, but I just love that idea of being like, and maybe it's just the top 3, where the rest of them like 4 through on, but like make a big deal out of getting on the podium. You get to, you know what, like maybe I'm a diehard Celtics fan, and yeah, I could take Jokic if I wanted, but Tatum is a collectible, and I've dreamed of having the Tatum collectible, and I'm going to take Tatum number 1. I don't know. I feel like you could have some fun with that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that would be something they could do every week, but like as a special event, that would be real. Like, I think it's more of that's what we want to. We have these evergreen core competitions, and it almost feels now to a point where if you don't have a different tournament that week, this week's a bit of a sucky one, especially on the NBA, because there's like 3 to play in each one, and that's what I know everyone wants to play more and all the time, but it is like a realistic Underdog isn't really even. Underdog's normally just like a throwaway for most people. So that's the thing with it. But yeah.
I think thinking about it more too, you're right. You couldn't do it like for every contest every game week, but even if you just pick one contest a game week, I feel like that could be a fun thing to do. Or just like you said, the Christmas Day slate, the All-Star game slate, whatever. I'd like Taylor in the chat too saying just list the Podium Rewards before the comp starts, so people can join the comps they value the most, and it takes away the disappointment of winning and getting a dupe. I mean, I think that's a pretty solid idea too. Is there any downside to listing that ahead of time?
It gets funky then if a player then say like you had Jokic and then he tore his ACL, then like what do you do? And then how is it fair on the next group of people if someone gets injured like a day later? There's murky ways and things of doing it. I still don't get mad at the current system. I love the reward opening of like the reward opening out of this pool. I love all of that sort of thing. I don't love getting Russell Westbrook as a tier 3 in back-to-back weeks, but
Yeah.
I think it's I think there's obviously ways it can be sort of improved and tweaked, but I'd still want it to be kept in the core manner. I just think in general the better reward structure is where we'd be aiming for. I don't like the fact that Rare pays less money than Limited. I think that's
Right.
wrong. I don't like
Yeah.
the fact that Super Rare pays the same, but obviously this is built into where they're pricing auctions and everything from that. But it's one of those things for it at the moment. That's just that's my rare contender. I'm fine. Contender in Super Rare, even it's top 13, but I'm still fine with that. It's just Champion, I think, is still a little bit tight.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Number 3, clearly communicated windows where we can make changes on core gameplays twice a year. What I love about this is they basically created a transfer window for themselves where they're like, here's where we can make some adjustments. I think, listen, I'm sure people have found a way to nitpick this one. I actually like this where they're like,
Yep.
we're going to take a specific amount of time to receive some feedback based on how the gameplay is going right now. And then through this, like, every like 6 weeks, we're able to dive in, or maybe not 6 weeks, but like 12 weeks, we're able to go in there and make necessary adjustments. I don't see, and I mean, clearly communicated, I think, is the most important part of that entire number 3 is just when everyone knows that ahead of time. I feel like that is helpful and probably keeps people from melting down as much. I don't know. What were your thoughts on that one?
I think that this would be one of the smarter things that they've done in a very long time, on the premise that they shot themselves in the foot by saying, hey, we're going to do a weekly update because there isn't enough things every week to talk about as an update per se. You can tweak things and say things are coming, but then all that does is then that people just get annoyed that it's an update of an announcement or an update that an update's coming. I think if you work towards this as well, it stabilizes things to a point where people are like, well, I don't want to go and buy any season 1 cards because they might update it and then require season 2 ones in like a week, and you don't know. If you know that there's going to be a communication on the 30th of June and on the 1st of December, or whatever it's going to be, every year you can then sort of plan by it. And then you also come to expect it. And also it gives just them enough of a breathing space so they don't feel like they have to rush things out. And sometimes I've got that impression in general across things of that if people have got antsy about something and they're like, you said this was going to come and it hasn't because there's been a delay in the legality on the compliance side of it in the back end. Instead of just saying that, which they then can't do, they've built themselves a buffer of time with this gap where they can just be like, hey, this is coming in the next update, 6 months time, and it will be 100% ready and done by then. It's much better.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that makes sense. We've talked about the court report. I feel like now we need to make a drop for the court. If we have the Dort report, there's no reason we don't have a court report drop.
You just need to get go on Fiverr and pay someone to edit it poorly, and then just have like a court report stuck on Ludor.
We got to get John in there too. We got to get John involved. But yeah, I agree. I mean, this makes a ton of sense. Jump shoot with a good question too, because the one thing that I've been struggling with this entire breakdown is like, is this really and it feels like it might be, but because he was saying, does each sport have its own windows during the off season or before the start of season would be better than the middle of the season, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
I think they'll give it to each sport, and I think you'll start to see, because I saw another point of someone basically saying Sorare is still in beta, essentially, like just in general, even on the football side, even though it's their main thing, it's just still in beta. So I think eventually as it grows, they're going to have like a full-on dedicated, and I know there is already, but like a full-on, maybe not like the whole walls between them, but a full-on team dedicated to each sport that will then have a clear roadmap between the three of them. And that's what I think it's really striving for. And I know there was like a podcast that unfortunately Nicholas did in French, so we had to rely on translations. But he basically said that the MLB and the NBA are still like at the forefront of what they want to do, and they got loads of these big plans. And they didn't really go into it too much, but it was still nice to hear when you heard sort of rumors and rufflings that it's like they don't really care about it and things like that, which I don't think was true in any case. But
yeah, I know that's what Maddie. I was saying, like, don't call it beta. Top Shot PTSD. I think just in general, the idea of setting up two different times throughout a season, we'll say, of a sport to be like, hey, here's where we've collected some feedback and have noticed there's been some tweaks that are necessary. This is the time it's going to happen. I think I'm definitely okay with that. I think, especially again, as long as it's clearly communicated, and it does take the pressure off of them posting something every single week. So I do like that. Also, we got Torb in the chat from Germany. Let's go, Torb. Good to see you. All right, number 4, manager ID, an amazing way to showcase your club victories, collections, and more. Okay, the only thing I would say about this is like, just make a ranking system. You know what I mean? Be like, I'm the 48th, I'm in 480th Sorare wide, and I'm 48th NBA ranking or something like that. I mean, this is cool. I'm not going to just poo-poo on this, but I think I don't really care about showcasing my club.
So again, this is another thing that they launched on the football side, and like, it does look a lot visually better. If you click on my club in comparison to the NBA side, it looks a lot better. There's a level system depending on how well you've done in competitions in the past and whatnot, and where your score is. It looks really good, but I mean, I did it once, and I'm like, oh, this is great, and then that's kind of it. And I'm like, this is fine. Like, I'm not mad at it, but it's like, this isn't going to revolutionize the platform and make me go and like tell everyone that I know about it. Like, it's just a nice UI update. It's all it is. There's nothing more to be said from it. It just makes the game look a little bit clean and modern for when new users come on, and that's about it. So there's nothing to go over it for.
Yeah, I agree. 5 is just mobile first scouting experience, so that you're going to be able to scout mobily. I mean, they could have just said mobile improvements, I think.
Yeah, I think, again, that one there is going to be more on the football side, because it's like, there's so many more players in the universe to go and scout for it. But again,
right,
I'm not sure if I'm sure it'd be a handy tool, but I think there's third-party sites that currently do it really, really well, and it would be hard for Sorare themselves to do that very well, and then everything else very well. So it's almost like choose a lane, I feel. But yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of choosing a lane, a revamped user journey, levels to guide users at each step of their career. I don't know what this means, but I would have hoped it would be something that would come to NBA, like we've talked about ad nauseum, right? Where it's like helping you progress through, like reasons to level up and whatnot.
So I think this is one of the more important. So they've made a whole big push of having new users join the platform. And you can argue if that's the correct way, if you feel that you should be looking for a smaller amount of people, but the right people, or a mass amount of people who, some of which probably won't play the game long term. This will help, I feel, because you get a lot of people that buy like 5 cards and then stay there. And I think that's what they're trying to. This is, if you've got people hooked in, but they're only buying a certain amount, if you have these level things to encourage people to go out and go and buy a few more limited cards, then make the jump into rare after a certain amount of time, or like eke into rare, and then they have a little competition to play in between. That's where I think that there can be improvements made. But if this level system is like, you score points, and then with these points, you can buy a digital flag for your club, I'm not sure that's not going to incentivize me. So I'm not sure how many people it would. So
no. Totally agree. I mean, again, I like to shout out the Premier League side of things when that first started. I mean, I loved that whole idea of like, oh, I have 1 limited and I can use some commons. Now I have a few limited, so I can use 4 limiteds and 1 common. Like that got me excited. And then once I like started winning some limiteds, you continue to progress. And then I suck, so I stopped doing it. But I think on like the NBA side of things, I don't think we have to go too deep into it, but we've talked about like, why would you move from limited to rare right now? And I think like if there were ways where you're like, again, like we saw in the playoff contest, if there's just like 1 special contest a week where you use 4 limiteds and a rare, whatever, it's just going to encourage people to scoop up some of those. All right. Let's keep moving. Sorry, it got really loud. I thought something was happening in my apartment. Number 7, we get the Rivals, baby. We've been talking about Rivals forever. We're moving from the closed to the open beta. Think about it as a simplified, mobile-first, social, head-to-head version of Sorare Pro, aiming at the onboarding of more casual audience that we can't onboard with Sorare Pro. And the only thing I will say about this, George, is I was more excited about Rivals until we had actually talked about it a little bit further. And it was like, oh yeah, this is like kind of a fun thing if I'm at a bar getting a drink or at the game. And then that's probably where it ends.
So I haven't played it, so it's hard to, and I haven't seen the NBA version of it as well. It's going to be interesting how it lands, because in my head, if I play so rare, I want to play so rare with the cards that I've got to win prizes, right? That's ultimately it, right? If I'm going to get someone to then sign up to so rare, to then not buy cards, but to play this with the intention of them buying cards, I can't, like, if someone essentially, if I talk to someone about so rare, they either want to play it or don't. I don't think there's the middle where they're like, I'll sign up but not buy the cards, but just play this and then maybe buy the cards. I don't see who that person is, but maybe the experience of Rivals is so good that it will then transform them into wanting to buy cards. And like, if you're looking at it on the aspect of that it's binary, you either don't play it or you do. If there is something that can kind of bridge that, and then you can get them kind of in the door, see what it's like, toe in the water, and then they go for it, then yeah, it's a great thing. Do I think it's, at the moment, do I think it's been worth potentially neglecting a few other things to focus solely on this? No, but we're here. So we just now have to wait for it to come out and see how it goes.
Because my understanding too, this is just like a head-to-head, nobody's winning anything except for pride, right?
Yeah, so I think you win coins, which you can then use in the club shop, which you can then buy tickets or merch or boosts and all of that sort of thing. So there has to be some form of aspect where it links, because otherwise it's a dead in the water thing already. There will be an aspect of that. So I think as well, that's why it isn't here, because club shop isn't here. Because then if you launch Rivals with no club shop, people won't play it after a little while because you don't get anything. Like, there's no point. So that's ultimately it.
Yeah, I think you do make a good point that we have not played it yet. So maybe it is so sick ass nasty that everybody will want to be doing it. Real quick, just from the chat here, Jamie saying, from my experience on FIFA, the game being so reward driven means a mode without rewards will lose interest pretty quickly. Taylor was saying, yeah, they need to add some sort of prize. It's great to the intro, the scoring aspect of gameplay more than anything. I do think, like, if I was going to, I keep thinking about Summer League because that's like the time that I'm usually around a lot of other people that are also into So Rare. And when you're there and everybody's physically going to a game and or like going out to watch a game, there's that fun, like, head-to-head idea. It's just giving you another sweat, right? But when it's just for, shits and giggles, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see what it looks like.
I mean, like, if you look at it, right, so in pickup this week in Commons, so the completely free mode to play, there was nearly 37,000 people that played the game. So this will be the indicator to me, is that when Rivals launches, does that number, like, dramatically increase? Does it go to 50,000? Sure. Does it double? Like, what does it do? And then you can slowly see that then if people are playing pickup and they win that first limited card, they then will like, well, I've got one, let's go and buy 4 more and play contender. And then that's how it snowballs. So that's the idea of it. So I don't hate that at all. They just need to get the implementer, and they need to do it kind of quickly as well, is what I'd say. But we've said this before.
Yeah, or you just wait till the start of next NBA season, like, or the playoffs, right? Like, it's going to start with, because we are now, I mean, listen, we're all NBA sickos. We're all watching week to week. We are about to hit a dead zone, baby. Like, we get to like the All-Star break, and then it's kind of a slog until we get to the playoffs. And then the playoffs, the hype comes right back. But the energy slows down a bit starting mid-February.
Well, you get that because then you also get the football really ramps up, the NFL really ramps up, and that's where like a lot of attention, especially in the American market, goes to. And then there'll be some hype for the MLB side. I don't think there's massive sort of in betweens. I don't think they're linked that much in terms of the player base for it. But yeah, it's going to be. I think I don't want, whenever they do another update, because sometimes they've been doing them Thursdays. I don't want another update to be like, an update's coming. We need to have, I'd rather them just not say anything for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then be like, bam,
totally agree.
It's all here. So
totally agree. But speaking of announcements, number 8, big surprise at launch, baby. Current gameplay not reflecting what you'll see at launch. So it sounds like whatever you're doing in the beta, it doesn't really matter because it won't look like that. Right? That's what you get.
Yeah. I think essentially it's, and again, this is like, we've not even got the NBA beta yet. So right. That's going to mean that when we get the NBA beta, it means nothing or what. But I think ultimately they're going to have got feedback from the beta, changed it in certain manners and ways. I think one of the big things is going to be that they're going to put some form of reward prizes that aren't intangible club shop coins. I think that's ultimately going to be it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would make a huge difference if that does happen. So
it'll probably just be cash. That's what it should just be. It should just be
Yeah.
cash, because if you go to your friend who doesn't want to go and buy these crypto cards, hey, you can make a team on this fantasy app and win $50, do it, and then they'll do it like
Yeah.
that. That's how you can then do it. But
That, or we're like playing for a jersey or something like that. Like, there's
yeah,
definitely things that they could do that we'll see. We'll see, because it also, I know the gambling thing is always tricky. So, all right, mobile. This is just all good stuff. Full launch of the Android this month, and full launch on iOS this month. I think both of those are really
yeah,
good. I think I'm not. I again, coming from the Top Shot space, I remember the days when everyone was like, actually, the second we launch an app, everyone's going to join, because they're going to see it in the Apple Store. And I review the Apple Store at all times, or the App Store at all times, and I download every single one that's trending. But I do think, like, anything that makes gameplay easier, and sometimes, logging on mobile, like I had a tough time putting funds on there not too long ago, because there was some issue with mobile. So yeah, any sort of update within app, I think is positive.
I still can't believe that the US can't just use their bank card and just deposit it, because like we were talking about this the other day. Like that's the only way I've deposited on Sorare now since I have an ETH balance, because when I win rewards, I keep them in ETH, because some people still only accept ETH on there.
Yeah.
But it's just it's literally like a click of a button now for me. It isn't like I need to go on, swap currencies, then send it over to my crypto wallet, and then send it back and pay all this money in fees. Like, it's so much more expensive as well on the fees aspect in comparison to just doing it on the card. So
it's insane. We were able to do it for like the first 2 months, I think. And now we're not able to anymore. And supposedly it's coming. I saw Andrew Laird had tweeted something out, and John said they ran into a hiccup or something like that, but hopefully it's ironed out shortly.
But
we'll see.
That will help massively. If you can, the two big things for me is on the App Store ones will be, if one, you can now buy on the secondary market, because I know you can buy the instant buys and they're normally inflated prices, so I don't want to do that in any case. But if you could buy on the secondary market on the app, that's a huge thing. And then if you can deposit through the app, like if you can just do like Apple Pay on there and do it, everything that you could do on your computer or laptop on the app, that genuinely will be a really big thing, because if people are traveling and they want to make a team that week, they'll then be able to buy the cards and so on and so forth. So
I'll be curious how they do it, just because I know Apple takes like a pretty big cut of those purchases that happen in app. So we'll see. Borland 2, saying never had a problem with MoonPay. Yeah, I know people who have access to MoonPay. It's worked pretty seamlessly. I don't. In the state of New York, you're not allowed to do it. But I have heard.
I don't even know what MoonPay is. What is it like a Klarna?
It's basically like a third-party thing that allows you to use your card on Sorare.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, you're not allowed to use it in New York. All right, let's see what else we got. This is pretty quick. So, ambassadors, first mainstream campaigns with star athletes. I mean, we have seen the NBA dabble with it a little bit, but that's more of just, I think they've done well. Actually, I don't even want to speak for that, because I know Paris is coming up, and we'll see some more stuff potentially. So I'll save that. But I imagine this is more on the football side. We're going to see some more footballers come out. And then last but not least, the partners here. We have addition of a couple iconic clubs that have been missing for a while. Detailed roadmap in the coming days. Wishing you all an amazing holiday season. So, I mean, I don't know, anything from the 11 and 12 that like got the blood flowing.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing from the ambassador side is that you get, obviously, the World Cup, and what they called it was the Global Cup, was such a huge deal for the platform. Like, that's what I came onto Sorare through, the World Cup. And then obviously the NBA launched at like a very similar time. So then I was like, well, this looks really good, because it's what I've enjoyed on the football side, but just for everything NBA. And that's how it hooked me. So there are a lot of people that will come on the platform if they get the Euro side coming up in the summer correct. And they've got loads of ambassadors that are French as well. Like, Griezmann's a big part of the French national team. I think he's an investor in Sorare as well. So there's loads of things that they can do to promo the game and push the game. And then once you're on the football side, even if you have an inkling of what basketball or baseball is, 9 times out of 10 people will still just go and check them out. And then you might be able to get some new users in from there. So I think there's always those sort of things are always a positive. There's no negative to having more eyes on the game and playing it. So that'll be a big thing for it.
Yeah. Do you have any lead on what kind of big clubs we're talking about here?
They haven't had PSG on the football side, like the number one team in France for like the last like 10 years. Yeah. They haven't had
Yeah.
PSG on the platform, I think, for like 2 years, maybe 3 years. Because they do a weird thing where they have to license every club individually, I believe, on some of the European leagues. They've not had some of the Milan cards on there. So yeah, I think they'll, if they're going to do a big campaign, you could see it with PSG and then Kylian Mbappe and do the whole French thing. So I'd imagine
Yeah.
it's that. I did see that they got Marseille back there, who's like a legacy heritage French league team, still good, obviously, but there's going to be some aspects that will bring it up to it. And again, like I've said, if they get those in there, more people join. They check out the NBA and the MLB. They're good. Everyone wins.
Are you as active on the football side as you are on the basketball side?
Definitely not. I still play the football, but the NBA would be like where I spend. If I'm on Sorare, I'll spend the majority of my time for it. The football one, I like. If I'm going to United, I'll go and make a team and build that there. I like football is like the sport I played when I was growing up. It's like my number one thing. It's everything, but it's
Yeah.
just it's so it's so big on the Sorare side for it. Like I dip my toe in and I'll play like the Premier League lineups. I play some of the MLS stuff over the off season in the NBA just so I can try and earn ETH to then build up a balance. But it's more like it's there as well. But I think the NBA scoring is much. I love the aspect in the matrix of the scoring almost more than the football side. That's what the NBA, when it introduced the L10, was what then was put onto football. That's the only ever thing that I think they've took from the NBA and put on their main game, because it works so well of the cap modes with an L10 of averages that they then moved it over to the football side. So I love the scoring matrix and everything around on this, but I find the NBA fantasy more exciting on the premise that I know you have your like MVPs and your star players, but in football, very rarely do you have Alec Burks, for example, this week be like, you need him in this lineup. Like football is like, there's normally this set of guys, you play these every week and you see how they do. The NBA, and that's what like Live Before Lock, it changes so much because of the caps and because they play so frequently. That's why it's a little bit more for me.
Right. I really am. And maybe this is a topic for another show. I would like to get more into, because I enjoy following football. I don't go out of my way to watch it every week, but I'm up to date with what's happening. I like enjoy following it week to week. But it does feel like such, and I'm sure football fans coming into NBA feel that way too, because you need to know so much more because it's constantly changing. But it does feel like a behemoth trying to wrap your head around plays when it comes to football. But
the price to entry, I think, on football as well is a little bit. I'd near say like 4x what it is on the NBA now, especially where prices are now. But that's the other aspect of it. I think you can have a better gallery on NBA for the price that you pay the MLB and, well, not MLB but football.
Yeah, and Boiler was talking about. I know some MLB in the chat. People are hyped on MLB. That's another one too that I wish I did a better job. I got into it for a little bit and then like slowed down, but that's similar to basketball. That's a pretty fun sweat where it's like you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours on it to get some together. I also love Taylor's comment too. Yeah, dude, let's get Wrexham on there. They're like, are there any League Two teams on Sorare right now? What do we need to do?
No, they're not covered. But again, like I think it's a no-brainer eventually that Sorare will pick them up, and it's a no-brainer for the clubs, I feel, because they just it's literally is a global game, and if you get you'll get people living in America giving a shit about Wrexham, who is a League 1, League 2 side in Wales. Like that's how you get more eyeballs on your club, and people are falling in love with football teams from like different nations because of Sorare. So it's a no-brainer to me for some clubs like that. But this is what I said about the NBA. Like I want Summer League, and then like Ultimate Champions, it does like the BBL, the Euro League. Just try and because if you put the Euro League on here, people will look at it like that, and it's what the Euro League should be looking at, because you've got all of these people that are basketball crazy in essence, crazy enough to buy digital NFT cards and play them in a fantasy lineup. If you put the league on it, people will then start looking at it.
I think that's why it was kind of a miss not to do anything for the FIBA World Cup too.
Yeah.
And I hope we see something for the Olympics, because there's enough NBA players playing in there. I mean, you could do it so it's just a common game too. You could do just like you did with the World Cup. Like I think there's ways to do it. I hope we see something like that, because people just want a reason to use their shit, man. Like, Oh,
if it's just the common stuff and it's the draft and you do the whole
yeah,
of the FIBA World Cup, that no one owns,
yeah,
you don't buy these cards because obviously only realistically a small amount of the like other national teams outside of the US will be covered anyway. If you just do the common ones for it and then have like a point system based on the World Cup, based on the Olympics, and do it similar to how you did it for the playoffs last year, and then change the prizes and do things like that, it would be great. And even though you wouldn't be sitting there making content on it every single game week per se,
right.
you would go on and check the app and look on Twitter and tweet out about it and things like that. And it just, people then remember that there's Sorare NBA, even though we have like 5-6 months off. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, Gilbert in the chat too saying NBA Summer League would be a nice addition too. I understand why that one's harder because it's like, but again, if you did it with commons and it doesn't matter, I think it's fine because you're not introducing, guys who are going to be working at Home Depot in like a couple of weeks, right? That are just, it's like getting their 10-day in just Summer League. So I get that. Yeah, and same thing, World Baseball Classic too. Yeah, all of those things. I mean, I feel like those are just easy W's. And yeah, the sun, listen, it was overcast for a little bit, but now we're shifting a little.
Every time we do it at this time slot, the sun just attacks you. It's what it is.
And every time this is over, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna adjust the shade so it's taken care of. And then every week I forget until we start.
Nice.
We're about 45 minutes in now. I know we had a few other things that we wanted to get to. Is there one in particular, George? If we want to just pick one of those things that you want to dive into?
Yes, I think the main one ultimately, and this will be a short conversation, was going forward. I think, and we've mentioned special competitions like already.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the requirement to have new season cards is actually a good one. And I know that that's probably going to be quite controversial in terms of people within the general community. But I feel like if you look at the success of IST, you look at the success on the Premier League Winter Special on the football side, you need these new season cards. Now, people moan about how prices have been going down. And admittedly, I will be one of them, that no one's happy that their gallery is worth X amount of what it was beforehand. But
Right.
it's also on the basis of that if I'm not buying cards and I'm someone that's playing this game twice a week, I can't expect new people to come on and do it in that manner. And it's, again, I know that there's going to be people that have got like thousands of cards in Wales and like, why do I need to keep buying them? But we need to, if we want prices to continue to hold stable in a manner like that. And if buying these new cards helps Sorare in a manner that then they can be like, yeah, we can throw on these $100,000 tournaments for this couple game weeks coming, I think it's a good thing ultimately for everyone, because everyone wants different cards at some point. Like you'll have looked, I'm sitting there and I want to go and pick up like an Anthony Davis. If I now have a reason to, just outside of the fact that it's this special competition, I think it benefits everyone because it'll also pick the secondary market up as well. So that's, I don't know if like, I know that the barrier to entry on having new cards and going and buying them is potentially poor. And the communication on this as well needs to be that we're not just going to do it on a manner of that we're going to throw out this competition, you need 2 new cards, and then we're not going to say when you're going to need them again. I think they need to be like, in 8 weeks' time, we're going to have this list of competitions, you need 2 cards. That then allows people to get ready, but also have confidence that you can use these cards and there's a reason for me buying them outside of just one game week, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially if they're going to do another IST type competition, say like that style for the playoffs, I think announcing that in like February or early March goes a long way where you're not like, okay, I have this 3 to 5 day window to secure these year 2 cards in order to play. I think having that information ahead of time, like definitely goes a long way. And it's just a more natural market condition where you're not going to see these massive spikes and then massive dips because everyone's buying in that like 72-hour window. I think that'd be a much healthier way of doing it.
That brought back, and I don't know if anyone from Sorare is watching this live or is watching this on replay, whatever you do for the playoffs, I don't care even if you repeated the same rewards price structure as last year, do not do the 25% boost if you buy before April 15th or whatever it was, because that was one of the worst things that Sorare NBA had. Because all you had was this like apocalyptically high rise in auction prices, followed by the world's steepest crash. Because then no one was like, well, why on earth would I buy any cards the day after that now don't have this boost for this playoffs coming? It was like it
Right.
just didn't. It was an aspect. It was the biggest form of like artificial influence on raising market prices, and it was horrendous for it. And then also meant that if you didn't go and buy those cards in the latter stages of the playoffs, if you then don't have the teams that progressed, and then you then buy them at their prices where they are, you still don't even compete because people have this unfair advantage. So I really don't want them to do that again. I really didn't like that, but
no,
that's
25. I mean,
probably that's my biggest criticism of like the entire thing that they've ever done, and that's all that was just don't do that again.
That was a crazy boost. There's no need for that. But yeah, I'm with you. I would be okay too if it wasn't. For some reason, over half of the cards being of the new year feels too much. Like I think I'd prefer 2, but I'm not going to bitch and moan if it's 3. I think if I just could make a preference, it would be 2.
I think if you're talking limited 2 or I think limited 3, rare 2, super rare, unique 1. I think that as a sort of ratio to go by is completely acceptable and fine. If I need to go out and buy 2 rare cards every year that I need to go and buy it for a particular tournament, I'm going to do it anyway. And even then, come playoff time, most people will have won once, maybe twice, a few times throughout the year of a decent level of caliber card. So there's not too much in it, I don't think.
No, I'm with you. And I think like, dude, start testing that stuff out now. Like you can do like a weekly contest where it's like that, and then you can get feedback from the community and then do it. Because I did see a couple of comments in there about like, why are they not rotating between, like we saw a couple of special contests and then they kind of went away. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully we get some more stuff. I wanted to throw one more comment up here too. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't pay attention to this. So I don't know how much of a problem this is, but he said a topic: high multi-account abuse in NBA, and Sorare is not really acting on it. Accounts who they ban are back under 5 days. Now I know multi-accounting always seems to be the thing that everybody goes to, and maybe that I knew it was a real problem year 1. Like there was a lot of that. I haven't seen as much of it, but again, I'm not like locked into it. Is that something that you're seeing a lot of?
So I think the multi-account, and now I know that this is really difficult for Sorare on the premise of that you can't necessarily, and just on a legal point of view, I don't think you can, in their T's and C's, can just outright ban people for doing this, because people can say, oh, I didn't know it was an issue. So then you get a slap on the wrist. And then I think the repeat offenses, they need to be a little bit more strict on it. The way in which I see multi-accounting a lot and it being an issue on the NBA side in particular is on the limited tip-off tournaments, on the new. So like we don't have access to them. It's for new accounts only. If you play in that and you only have like under 10 limited cards or something, you get access, you can win tier 3 or tier 2. And what will happen is people are just making so many of these accounts, re-entering this. Like one person will have 50 accounts. He'll enter the same lineup 30 times. He, in theory, could then win 30 tier 3s, sell them to market. And it's 30 cards going out, but only one person's getting the money. And if he's not reinvesting it back in the platform, it's a downhill for everyone else. On the football side of things, and which is potentially a slightly larger issue, is that they obviously have cap modes where they pay thresholds. So if you hit a certain point score, you just get money. So if you cap 240, on cap 240 on the limited side, it's like $5 if you hit 280 points. On the rare side, it's $50 if you hit 280 points. If people have got multiple accounts that are doing that, they're taking money out of the platform. Like realistically, I'm only allowed to win $50 per week. If someone's got 10 accounts and they're winning $500 a week, it's an issue for Sorare again. And it's then it then has a trickle-on effect for everyone playing the game. And the frustration is, I feel that it's happening quite a lot. People are getting a minimum ban of like 5 days and then coming straight back in. And that's, I think it's not the initial ban, it's being stricter on repeat offenders. And that is where I think that it lies the issue.
Yeah, I see a lot of people in the chat too, just saying, what about KY, like just KYCing, and that kind of eliminates a lot of that. And like, I don't care, because I'm not like a Web3 truther, like bro. But I do know that there are a lot of those people, right? And if the second you introduce KYC, they're like, oh, come on, dude, it's about ownership, this is about blockchain, and they get real upset. So like, I get that that's probably not a smooth answer for a Web3 based company.
I think, yeah, the issue is though, is this is where then Sorare need to pick their lane. because are we being a game for the masses where we're having Apple Pay and people can KYC and you can win $5 every week, or are you being a crypto NFT game where you own these cards via the blockchain and you have complete anonymity over this? And there lies then the issue. So it's like not an identity crisis, but you have to find a middle ground for them, because obviously they need more people to play the game to become sustainable and grow and everything.
Right.
So it's going to be a tricky one. Ultimately, it should just be a one, not a one-strike policy, but after it's like fool me once, like shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. It should be done. Mm-hmm. If you're a repeat offender twice, the account should be terminated and banned. That's just ultimately it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like that. I remember last year I got frozen for a little bit because I was given cards because I was just doing giveaways, and they had a tweak in their algorithm, and they were like, "Oh, this dude's a multi-accounter," and I was like, "No, dude, I'm just building community, all right."
Yeah, like there's definitely ways around it, and it's probably a thing again in their T's and C's of like what they can actually do, and then it's changing all of them, and they can't just do that overnight. But yeah, I think it's something that is way more serious than we're probably giving it light to.
Yeah.
But because I'm like, I'm 54th in Limited Champion now, I care about this.
Yeah.
A little bit easier.
And I haven't even and I haven't seen the limited tip-off contest in like a year. So I don't want to make it seem like I don't give a shit about that as a problem. I just physically am not seeing it as much outside of like people in the Discord.
Because it doesn't directly negatively affect me, I don't voice it enough. But through other avenues, it is affecting the whole player base, and just people don't think of it in that manner. I feel like I'm guilty of it myself, so it's just one of them things.
I like it. All right, George, let's call it here because we hit a lot of our stuff. That was good. Look at us, man. Look at us. That was a good one. Shout out Nicholas for that tweet that gave us 42 minutes of content.
Yeah.
But I have your YouTube channel linked in the comments. I mean, in the show description for the Swingman Pod. Anything coming up over there?
So I've got just the standard stuff. We've got another podcast coming out soon. We've had one of our guys has been in Marrakesh, I do believe, is where he jetted off to. So when he comes back from that, we'll be talking all things hoops in the new year, and then the run-up to the Paris game, and then everything in terms of the run-up for All-Star, and then the playoffs. So come and follow me over there. I have just seen Taylor put in the chat. I think I'm doing that tomorrow with Taylor. So I think he's going to grill me with some questions.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, we're trying to hit 1,000 subs. So if you're watching this over here and you're not subscribed to us, even if it's just the one of you that isn't there, go and hit a sub over there. We're trying to reach that as fast as possible. So yeah.
Swingman, what are you guys up to? 779. Let's go. Get him over a K. Get him over a K. For us over here, we got on this channel, I believe Friday we'll have another live before lock. Those are some of my favorite shows. So I appreciate both George, who's been on a bunch of them this season, and so is TST. Ghost, if you're out there, you're always welcome. And but yeah, that'll be Friday at 5:30. We're also going to give away those KD and Jalen Brunson rare tier cards since we hit 500. I have to give a couple day cushion because what ends up happening is people are like, oh, dude, they're doing a giveaway, and then they create a bunch of fake accounts, and then all of a sudden it goes to 500 and then back down to 490. So I need to make sure YouTube says these Google people are real. But yeah, we'll do that on Friday. We'll give that away. We'll also have a value hunting episode drop soon. But I think that's it. I think that's it for both of us. Good luck the rest of this game week. What's our biggest sweat over there, George? Who do we need? Kyrie?
I need Kyrie. I need Kyrie to have a massive game is what I need.
There we go. We're both sweating Kyrie.
I'll be here. If live before locks, I'm out, I think I'm going for an Indian. But if I'm back before that and I'm not dead, then I'll be here for because I want to see the giveaway. I want to be there for the giveaway for it. But it's just depending on how the Indian goes is all I can say.
I think. Well, I like that week because we got you straight out of mince pies this past week, right?
Yeah, it's been very food centric.
We almost need, it would be a funny series that would really be only funny for like 30 people, but we need a behind the scenes of your your pregame meals before
my
LBL
pregame. Yeah, that's what we need to go for. I think, I don't think I'm going to recommend a curry if we then jump on an hour-long stream sweating about Sorare.
Oh man! All right, good stuff. For George, for myself, thanks for tuning in. I hit the video too soon. I said thanks for tuning in, and then just hit the video. Thanks for tuning in. Best of luck the rest of the game week, and we will see you. I don't know, Friday. We'll see you soon. We got.